Good afternoon to you. Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com. Here it is Monday, the 4th day of April 2022. Back in the office briefly between family vacation last week and in a couple of hours I get on a plane and head to Texas for the National Tropical Weather Conference. We'll be there all week for that down in South Padre Island. And then after I get back from that, I'm here for a couple of days and then I go down to Orlando for the National Hurricane Conference. I'm very honored to be able to be presenting during both conferences, so that's a great thing. We'll kind of all get together for the first time since 2019 because of you-know-what has kept us apart. Thumbs down for the you-know-what there, the thing as we call it. But yes, it's time to get back together and discuss hurricanes, what we've learned, do some networking, and see where we're going. Maybe for the upcoming hurricane season, we'll be hearing from Dr. Klotzbach. I'll show you a little bit about that in just a moment. All right, so let's get on with it. A lot to talk about today. First, a stop in Wisconsin. Why? Well, they have a great tropical cyclone page at the University of Wisconsin. Kind of an odd thing way up there, but hey, we like it, so we'll look at it. I am wondering why we don't see the invests that are over here. They do show up on Dr. Cowan's site at Tropical Tidbits. I'll show you that in just a minute. Nevertheless, we also have a tropical storm here east of Australia. It's not going to be a big problem. Generally speaking, this is going to move in this direction away from Australia, so no problems with that system. Meanwhile, just a real quick look at the different satellite panes here at Tropical Tidbits. 94W, 95W, these are all in the Western Pacific. None of them are very well organized, but they are part of a strengthening, a little bit more stronger version of the MJO that we have seen, the Madden-Julian Oscillation. And there is Tropical Cyclone 23. Maybe that's how you say 3 in Australian. You know, like 3, mate. I don't know, just trying to make a joke there. The good news, though, joking aside, this isn't going to affect our friends down under. All right? So let's take a look at what we have on the GFS in the Western Pacific really quickly here. What are we looking at? Hadn't shown you this in a while. Well, there's Japan, just to give you some bearings. This would be the Philippines, where our good friend and colleague Brent Lynn currently resides. He's been there for a couple of weeks. He's going to be there for a couple of more weeks. He's been doing some research, some ground research, getting to know the locals. He loves this area, fell in love with it after Typhoon Tisoy back in 2019, before the thing, the you-know-what, and that's kept a lot of chasers from roaming the globe. But I think hopefully that is all coming to an end, at least the not being allowed to roam part, and Brent is, as such, checking things out over there. And there might be some action brewing. There's the MJO trying to get started, a little bit more amplified in this part of the world. And so we can look at the GFS and see if it shows this down at the 5,000 foot level. Not necessarily the MJO, but the results of it. It takes time. That's about 78 hours. There's 96 hours. And, you know, it looks like a large conglomeration of just general low pressure over in that part of the world. Which one will take over and become dominant? Well, you know the story. Stay tuned, because we don't know the story. We don't know how it's going to turn out. But the strengthening Madden-Julian Oscillation by about a week's time does suggest maybe some typhoon, tropical storm to typhoon activity. They're the same thing as hurricanes. They're just called typhoons in that part of the world. Something interesting to watch, especially if we just run this on out, that any of these get ingested into the jet stream up here like that. We'll just have to wait and see. This is way out in time. Something to watch. We will watch it. Brent will be watching it. We'll see what happens. All right, moving on to the Western Hemisphere. Sea surface temperature anomalies for today. A little warmer now along the equatorial region than we have seen lately. Maybe a little bit of erosion of the La Nina, at least in the eastern part of the Pacific, in the INSO regions. But beyond that area, extending farther out to the west, still have the cold signal overall. The La Nina is in place. Pretty warm subtropics in the western part of the basin relative to average. Meanwhile, the main development region has cooled off pretty significantly here in the last few weeks, owed to stronger trade winds kind of coming along and blasting through the region, among other things. So it's an interesting look here as we get into early April, and that'll also be discussed certainly by Dr. Klotzbach at the National Tropical Weather Conference. I'll tease that for you again here in just a moment. So we graduate from this and go to this. Let's see what the old CFS V2, one of many models, is up to. Still suggesting La Nina pattern, holding on well through the peak of the hurricane season, which would be this area right through here. So no El Nino is a huge piece of the puzzle. And I think we've made that clear. If you've watched this channel enough, you follow hurricanes enough, you get that idea. Just not having an El Nino is a big puzzle piece in favor of a busy Atlantic hurricane season, at least to keep it from being suppressed. How busy the Atlantic becomes, well, that's based on a whole bunch of other parameters. Sea surface temperatures relative to average, where those temperatures are warmest, where the upward motion is, that kind of thing. And we will get more glimpses of that in a couple of weeks when some new graphics come out, some new data that will be turned into graphics from our good friend Ben Knoll over at Ben Knoll Weather. I'll show those to you when those are available. But CFS still saying we're going to have La Nina stick around generally through the end of the year, it would appear. Maybe even into early 2023. Oh, goody. All right. The subsurface, let's refresh this page if it'll cooperate. And it did. Thank you very much for cooperating. We can excuse that page and go over to the GIF animation. Look at the subsurface here, how the cold has really expanded in recent weeks. We lost all this warmth that seemed to show up. Then the cold said, nope, not so fast. Then there's another warm pool trying to develop in the Western Pacific. It probably isn't going to have much of a chance to really make much of itself. And there's the warmth that we're seeing in the upper part of the Pacific Ocean in recent days and weeks. That can be easily trimmed away, believe me. It can. That part of the Pacific's very susceptible to rapid changes in sea surface temperatures. So while it's pretty warm now, this can change rather quickly. But the biggest signal is all of this subsurface cool relative to average. And it is cold, believe me. If you went down 300 meters, it would be cold. But it's also colder than it should be. And that La Nina holding on strong. So that's the first major piece of the puzzle for the upcoming hurricane season. We've been tracking that since the end of last season. Not much has changed in that regard. No El Nino seems almost a certainty at this point. So how are sea surface temperatures doing actually, instead of anomalies, a departure from something? Well, Gulf is still warming up. There's your 26 Celsius line, like that. I'll be down here in South Padre. Looks like this color, let's see, it's like blue. Maybe over here, since it's shallower near Port Isabel, and 71 or 72 Fahrenheit. No, thank you. I'm good. Plus, it's going to be kind of windy down there. It always is when we go to that conference. Very windy in South Padre this time of year. Water temperatures just not warm enough to jump in the Gulf. Sorry, not going to happen. But if you're down in the Keys in Southeast Florida or elsewhere in the Southeast Gulf and Cancun, Cozumel, Belize, yes, water temperature is nice and toasty, even in the southeastern part of the Gulf as well, in the Bay of Campeche. 26, 27, even 28 Celsius, knocking on the door of 82 degrees. Everything's warming up like it should. Go back to the anomaly real quick. The Gulf's still running warmer than average overall, and that plays more into the severe weather season. I've talked about it over and over. You get the big high off the coast, the return flow around it. The moisture gets pumped in, the extra humidity and energy. These surface lows and deep troughs come out of the west, and you get action in the middle. Depending on how this is all set up, you can get an MCS, a mesoscale convective complex, like we're going to have today. You can get tornadoes in the deep south and all kinds of mayhem when this pattern persists. And so far, it definitely has this severe weather season. What about the East Coast, Mid-Atlantic region? Still too cold to go swimming, in my opinion. But maybe you got a wetsuit and you don't care. I do, so I don't get in. Wait until it's about 82 degrees, 80 to 82, and I'm jumping in. Gradient slackening off just a little bit because water temperatures are warming. The gradient, the difference in temperature here over distance. But, you know, everything's moving along as the sun angle gets higher and higher in the sky. Okay. National Tropical Weather Conference coming up. I'll be there. Like I said, I'll be presenting on Friday, discussing what we have been doing since we last got together. And a lot has happened. We're not going to talk about all the other stuff that's happened, because everybody knows about that generally. We're going to talk about hurricanes. What have we been doing in the world of hurricanes? And my team and I have been very busy, as you well know. We have accomplished a lot, made a lot of strides forward, in our technological prowess, the data that we have collected both meteorologically with our pressure sensors and our anemometers. We've had some failures. We've gotten our butts kicked a couple of times. Hurricanes are tough. They are. So we're going to talk about all of that and more and hear from some of these other people as well. That's down in South Padre Island. A great conference, small enough to make it very personal and we get to know each other. Big enough, though, that we can have a wide variety of people and really learn from each other, do that networking that is so important as we move forward. All right. This gentleman, Taylor Trogdon, good friend of mine, used to be at the National Hurricane Center. He is now out in Colorado doing forecast operations there. And he is a very talented individual, let me tell you. He's pointing out some obvious stuff here. Enhanced risk for today. We go to tomorrow. These may be out of order. That's okay. This is tomorrow, I think, and then this is the next day, day 3. Point is, a very active period of severe weather coming up. And I asked him, because I've been really busy, hey, I'm traveling. I hadn't read the discussions yet, so what's up? What are we looking at? And Johnny Parker here, pretty popular meteorologist. A lot of you know this gentleman. Went to MSU, Mississippi State. Damaging wind is the biggest thing here, and that's what I thought. The tornado threat from this setup these next few days, not as high as we have seen lately. It's more of these large complexes of thunderstorms, and I'll show you more of that in just a moment. Another interesting tweet that I saw was from Alex here. Alex Lamers, I guess is how you pronounce that. Meteorologist and a nerd like me. Well, I'm not a meteorologist. I'm a geographer, technically, by degree. But he likes to talk about weather, so that works. We listen to what Alex says. Smart gentleman. And yeah, there's a pretty strong signal for a pretty good wind event up here in the Pacific Northwest. So you folks up there, Seattle, Tacoma, Oregon coast, British Columbia, Vancouver, and the Rockies interior areas into Idaho even. Yes, you need to be paying attention to this big wind event coming up as a lot of energy comes off the Pacific. Moving right along. Now this is a heck of a signal here that Kaylin is pointing out. Who is Kaylin? That's somebody who follows the weather. And they're only over at the University of Wisconsin. So another smart person. See, Twitter is good. You just got to know who to follow. And those eyeballs say it all. You got to really watch this pattern. When is this? This is next week. Right around the time, actually that's when I speak down in Orlando. I'll be down here. So, it'll probably be in the mid-80s in Orlando. Cold and yucky in the, and that's their weather term, in the Rockies and Intermountain West. And then you know what? That's the battle zone right there in between. Yikes. That's the pattern coming up. Storm chasers, start selling your blood for the gas money now, because you're going to need it. Let me tell you. All right, so owing to what Taylor was tweeting here, let's look at it individually. Day 1, mostly a wind threat today. The tornado threat, parts of Louisiana. Sorry about that, folks, down there. And Mississippi. I know you've been through a lot since basically 2020 with everything you dealt with there. And then it's just kept rolling ever since with hurricanes and now severe weather. What can you do? It just goes with the territory. What can you do? You be aware of it. And that's what I'm helping you to do here. The wind, though, is the biggest issue. A very impressive, almost like a tropical wave would look. These big complexes of thunderstorms that we see move across the west part of Africa, the Sahel. This is not the same thing. I don't want to confuse the two. But this is not discrete supercells. This is a cluster. I'll show it to you in a minute on the HRRR model, the High Resolution Rapid Refresh. Hail, kind of significant there in parts of where I'm flying in today. Wonderful. I am. I'm literally going to be flying from Wilmington over to Dallas here in the next couple of hours. So, yay me. Hopefully the convection can wait. I like weather when it gets interesting. I don't like flying through it when it gets scary. Yes, I'm a chicken bleep. So yeah, Taylor did have him correct. So tomorrow's severe weather threat shifts to the southeast and enhanced risk. Again, it's more of the straight line winds, etc. The tornado threat, a little stronger in southeast parts of Georgia and Alabama. I mean, we really got to pay attention to this. Severe weather, it's if it happens to you, it's a big deal. We don't know if it's going to happen to you. So that's why we raise the awareness like we do here. Wind, pretty significant at 30%, and the hail threat generally in Alabama and Georgia, so be aware of that. Again, especially truckers Anybody traveling home from spring break? I saw a bunch of you yesterday on I-95 as I came home from Miami with the family. Holy cow. And how about that hailer, by the way, just real quick. I didn't want to pull up. I mean, I got to get this done and get out of here. But you saw all the video from Miami yesterday. Probably, and if you live there, you know about it. Golf ball size hail in some areas. And it was pretty busy. But point is, a lot of truckers, a lot of people coming home from spring break, severe weather sweeping across basically north of the I-10 corridor. That would be I-20 and I-40. So you folks be careful. All right, seriously, be aware. Share the knowledge. If you're a weather geek, don't be ashamed of that. Yes, send screenshots, send emojis with it. Let people know you got to be paying attention. The world is busy and noisy, and you got to make sure you pay attention when it counts. So this is coming up to day 3, another enhanced risk. That will be Wednesday. Today's day 1, tomorrow's day 2, this is day 3. And then looking out into the future, we can do that, Eastern North Carolina by Thursday, and then days 5, 6, 7, and 8. Predictability and probability, etc., too low. All right, our good friend the the HRRR for today. In case you don't know it, that's Oklahoma, that's Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, so forth and so on. This is the convectively aided model, or whatever. It's a CAM. It's got the convection, right? This model knows convection. That's what it's built for, among other things. So we look to it for the high resolution solutions to our weather problems, and this is what it looks like going forward. This is every hour, so this is 0Z tonight, so about 7 p.m. Texas time, Central time, the squall line gets going, and then look what happens. It develops into, it almost looks like a little curlicue in there, nice bowing, a bow echo look to those thunderstorms. Yikes, gonna be a nasty night. Hopefully, I can get my butt to Houston. I fly from Wilmington, like I said, over here to Dallas and vicinity, Dallas-Fort Worth, and then down to IAH tonight. And if I can avoid all of that, I'll be a very happy guy. Thank you very much. But this will sweep on through, and that's a heck of a squall line that's going to move into areas well after the game tonight in New Orleans. So anybody celebrating, whoever you're for, I'm rooting for Kansas, just so you know. And I have my reasons. For those of you that know me, you know why. But seriously, that squall line will push through the greater New Orleans area after sunup tomorrow. So if you've got a hangover from too much celebrating on Bourbon Street for Kansas Jayhawks, right? The thunderstorms might wake you up. So just be aware of that. Seriously, going out into time, we can joke a little bit. The weather, levity's good once in a while, because weather can be very serious. This is the 500 millibar chart moving out into time. Look at all that activity moving through that big old bowling ball of low pressure and cold air sweeping across the country, and that's the harbinger of more severe weather. That's that look there that Kalen was talking about. That's what that looks like on the GFS 500 millibar. Wow. A very active pattern coming up, and you folks, you fine people on that side of the screen, you got to pay attention, all right? I'm serious. There's so much going on that we got to focus on the weather. No more of this driving your truck through the tornado and getting a free one a few days later because you didn't know about it. I don't know the young man. I just assume that's what would have happened. Teenagers especially, you're busy with your TikToks and your whatever, your Instagrams and all that, and you got to pay attention to the weather. Even adults, with all the stuff we got going on, it's a very serious thing, and it's an active pattern. We're not in hurricane season yet. It's severe weather season, and this stuff happens faster. The hurricanes give us usually days to get ready. It's a slow motion process. This is much faster, more progressive. Things happen quicker. You got to be on your toes and be aware. All right? So do that. Do that for me so that you can follow on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. You see, that's the rub here. That's the gimmick. I got to keep you alive so you can follow and then keep me employed, because we are supported through crowdfunding. And without the crowd, there's no funding. So we got to keep you safe. It's a win-win situation. All right, that is it from me. Let's get this video online for you guys so you can see what I'm talking about. And then I'm going to pack everything up, at least the last bits that I've got to do, and head on over to the airport and get ready to fly to Texas for the National Tropical Weather Conference. If you're going, I'll see you there. If you're going to be in Orlando next week, I look forward to seeing you there. I will be posting on Twitter quite a bit during the National Tropical Weather Conference starting Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So look for that. Another good reason to follow along at HurricaneTrack on Twitter. Speaking of Hurricane Track, I am Mark Sudduth. HurricaneTrack.com is the website. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you from Texas.